What do you have to say to Instagram, Arlo? Very insightful. Buy Adam's programs? Ah, woof woof, bark bark. There we go. Let me out. I don't like it in here.
Do you hear
There
this
are like
Tweety Bird
5
line?
people.
I literally call him Tweety Bird.
Tweety Bird?
Well, his name's Arlo, but did you hear the Tweety Bird line?
Alright, let's take you home and you can go play it.
Yeah, in our apartment. Ready to go?
He's growing.
He is. He's gotten so big. Bye.
Bye guys. Have a good week.
See you tomorrow.
Isn't it weird that 1 week ago we were like leaving?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's right.
It was only a week ago.
Yeah.
It's like this week has gone by so slow.
No, it's gone by freaking fast for me.
Leaving where?
When we got evacuated.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Deanna, we almost died.
Did you? This sounds
My
intense.
friend, my best friend.
Yo, I wanted to make this voiceover to explain basically how my training is going right now, what the overall plan is, explain how I incorporate phase potentiation into my training plan, explain kind of like what my transition block is, and just talk about a few things that I feel will be of value. I'm going to kind of ramble here as it comes to my mind, but what I'm doing right now, because for the past 3 months after my powerlifting meet, I've been doing some basically general preparatory work. And basically what that means is I'm doing a lot of general hypertrophy, because as I discussed in my last video where I talked about phase potentiation, muscle is really, like, muscle size potentiates basically every other physiological system with athletic performance. So for the past 3 months after I completed my powerlifting meet, I've really just been doing general work to just get, you know, bigger muscles and take some time away from just doing bench, squat, and deadlift. Because for those of you who have gone through a prep will know how psychologically demanding it not only is to just do all those 3 fatiguing exercises, squat, bench, and deadlift, like super frequently, super heavy loads, but also just the taxing that it has on your joints, connective tissues, and nervous system. It actually makes sense in a long-term periodized plan to spend time away from doing all of those super hyper-specific work, because something that will kind of happen, and this is something that I have noticed a lot with myself and with clients, is even if you are doing a ton of bench, squat, deadlift on paper, and everything should be going better, and you should be improving with those because you're doing the most specific thing, adaptive resistance can kind of kick in, and you can really kind of start to regress with your technique and with really just adapting and getting better in general, because your body is just so used to that stimulus. So for myself, I have done basically very little squat, basically 0 competition style bench press, lots of closer grip variations because I have weaker triceps, and a lot less of deadlift work, just because deadlift is not the best exercise for hypertrophy. And the reason why is just because the stimulus to fatigue rate ratios is not favorable, because hypertrophy, again, like you guys have already heard me say, is completely dependent upon volume, and fatigue is a big limiting factor, a confounding variable that can limit your ability to actually accumulate volume. And because deadlift, you can typically use the most amount of load on it, it is just super fatiguing. It's super stimulating, and you can absolutely see crazy hypertrophy of the back and of the leg musculature just because it uses all of those muscles. But in terms of actually hypertrophying specific muscles and getting them as big as possible, it makes sense to kind of put deadlifts more on maintenance volume, or even take mesocycles where you don't pull from the floor at all. I had one mesocycle where I just did stiff-legged variations and whatnot, just because I needed that break, and it would help me build my hamstring muscles a little bit more, and my glutes, etc. Anyways, what I've been doing now in this mesocycle, because I am planning on transitioning into a more of a competition prep phase because I have a meet tentatively picked out for October ish. Depends on how things go, but that's what my plan is right now. I'm moving into more specific work, so I am starting to increase my specific volume on my squats, bench, and deadlift, and actually using competition stances. I'm still doing a high bar just because it's hypertrophy and it's just a better stimulus to fatigue ratio. But the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to get prepared for doing these really heavy loads, and because strength is a skill that's highly dependent upon technique and whatnot. If I was to just go from a super general preparatory block, like my last training cycle was, and just doing really heavy fives, like 3 to 6 reps on squat, bench, and deadlift, just basically every single session, that wouldn't be very smart in terms of injury prevention, my ability to actually progress and benefit from the strength block, etc. So what I'm kind of doing is a little bit of a hybrid type of block that I call a transition block into a strength block after you've taken a lot of time away from really this super specific work of squat, bench, and deadlift. So I'm starting to increase the volume that I do on my squat, bench, and deadlift, and I'm incorporating a little bit lower rep ranges. For example, last mesocycle I was doing lots of 10 to 15 rep range, but this one is mostly 6 to 10. And what that's going to do is that's going to get me ready for the 3 to 6 rep ranges for the next 2 months after this. So that's basically my whole thought process. It's going well. I felt happy about how I hit my RPEs this week. I get questions a lot about how do I know if I'm hitting RPE 7, 8, 9, 10. It's really just a skill that you kind of have to learn, and there are certain cues that you can tell with yourself. Like for example, I know that if I start to slow down my reps, I'm about around an RPE 7. I mean, anything beyond that is kind of just, any rep beyond that, like if I have to get one more beyond that, it's probably 8, 9, 10, etc. The biggest thing is don't overthink it. Choose a load that you know that you can progress with that is moderately challenging for the first week, and then go up. It's much less consequential to undershoot than overshoot on your loads. So make sure that if you are trying out new techniques, new exercises, coming back into something new, don't be over ambitious, because you can always increase loads, and the worst thing you can do is overshoot and dig yourself a hole right from the beginning of the mesocycle. A good example of this is I'm only doing 405 for 8, and my all-time PR with conventionals is 495 for 8. But on this, I'm doing a different technique. I'm actually trying to actively control the eccentric lowering part of this, because positioning is kind of an issue for me. I tend to kind of just drop the weight. But I'm happy with the loads with it used, and definitely have lots of room to improve. But yeah, that's currently what I'm doing. Not much footage this week other than training, just because I've been super busy with finishing up school and coaching and whatnot. But yeah, I'm excited for this training block, and hopefully I can capitalize on it, and hopefully hit some really nice volume PRs, and then it'll set me up really nicely for a strength phase. But I want to thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. If you want coaching or any one of my programs, links are down in my bio, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Later.